$1 million if you can heal these legs. Fair trade, huh? Maya Williams stepped back instinctively, startled. Her eyes widened as she realized she had barely brushed past a man in a wheelchair while making her way to the restroom. Still, she bowed slightly out of reflex. "I'm so sorry, sir." Jack Remington looked up from his wine. In a tailored charcoal suit and Italian loafers resting awkwardly against the braces of his chair, he was unmistakable. Salt and pepper hair, a rugged jaw, eyes like smoked glass. His grin curled slowly, like a knife being unsheathed. "Didn't even touch me, did you?" he said loudly, mockingly. Maya remained calm. "Still, I apologize." Jack chuckled, then reached into his blazer pocket. With a flourish, he pulled out a $10 bill, crumpled it slightly, and tossed it onto the floor near her feet. "Tell you what," he said, his voice now deliberately raised to reach other diners. "Get down there, give my feet a little rub, and that $10 is all yours. Think of it as a performance bonus." Laughter barked from his chest. A few guests turned to look. One man frowned. A woman clutched her wine glass tighter. Maya didn't flinch. She looked down at the bill, then back at Jack. "I'm not here for a performance," she said simply. Jack laughed even harder. "Oh, come on. It's a joke. Lighten up. You people used to have a sense of humor." That's when his smile faltered for the briefest moment because Maya wasn't glaring, nor was she ashamed. She was still, graceful, calm, and she was looking directly at him, not the man on the magazine covers, not the caricature in the chair, but him. And in that pause, she spoke again. "Do you really laugh like that? Or are you just trying to drown out the part of you that still wants to cry?" The table fell silent. Jack's eyes narrowed slightly, the grin stiffening like drying cement. Then he forced another laugh, this time quieter. "Okay, fine. I'll sweeten the deal." He leaned in slightly, lowering his voice. $1 million if you can heal these broken legs. No rubs, no prayers, just make me walk, and the money's yours." Maya blinked. She recognized him now, Jack Remington, the tech mogul who'd vanished after a horse-riding accident and a public divorce. Once a star, now a shadow. Still sharp, still cruel, but crumbling quietly beneath the surface. She met his gaze for a beat longer, and in those eyes beneath the smug glint was pain. Real, heavy, buried pain. "I hope you enjoy your meal," Maya said. She stepped around the bill on the floor and walked calmly away. 2 days later, Maya stood before the heavy iron gate of Remington Estate. She hadn't requested the assignment. The agency had called last minute, asking her to step in as a temporary caregiver. She almost declined until they said the name. Now, standing under the weeping willows outside his Georgian mansion, Maya took a slow breath and pressed the intercom. The gate clicked open. Inside, the house was hushed and grand, full of marble, mahogany, and long shadows. She stepped lightly across the foyer toward the sunroom. He was there by the window, in that same chair, staring out at a pond that shimmered under morning light. "You," Jack said when he saw her. His voice held surprise, maybe irritation, maybe something else. "You again. I didn't expect to see you either," Maya replied. Jack chuckled bitterly. Fate's got a sick sense of humor. She offered a polite smile and walked toward the sideboard to place her bag. "Here to clean up my soul?" he muttered. "I'm here to help however I can," she said gently. Jack gestured toward his legs. "Still offering that million. It's real, you know. Tax-free. You fix this, you're set for life." Maya paused, watching him carefully. "You think I'm joking," he added. "I think you're hurting," she said. He stared at her, searching for a smirk, some trace of mockery, but there was none, just a calm stillness, a strength that made him feel both curious and uncomfortable. "What would you do if you walked again?" she asked softly. Jack scoffed. "Dance naked on my lawyer's desk. Fire half the board. Buy back my own company just to burn it." "Not live differently?" Maya asked. "Not live better?" Jack opened his mouth, but no words came. She adjusted the blanket on his lap, the gesture natural and unhurried. He watched her hands, strong hands, not pampered, not afraid of weight whether physical or emotional. "You laughed at me in that restaurant," Maya said. "You made me feel small in front of strangers." Jack flinched, just slightly. "But what I remember more than your laugh," she continued, "was your eyes. You weren't laughing on the inside." Jack looked away, jaw tightening. She stepped back, giving him space. I'm not here to judge, just to help. I don't need your pity, he snapped. It's not pity, she replied. It's something you may have forgotten. Dignity. Jack stared at her for a long time. Something in him shifted barely but enough to notice. The challenge remained, but the cruelty dimmed. Fine, he muttered. Let's see what you can do. Maya nodded once and moved toward the kitchen. Behind her, Jack sat in silence. He didn't laugh again that morning. Not once. Maya moved through the Remington estate with practiced ease. The kitchen, with its granite countertops and chrome fixtures, gleamed under natural light. She moved with quiet precision, boiling water for tea, arranging a plate of toast and poached eggs, preparing Jack's medication on a small ceramic tray. Every movement was respectful, careful. It was how she treated every client, no matter how cruel or kind. From the sunroom, Jack could hear her humming softly. It was the same tune she had hummed the day before, gentle, without lyrics, as if plucked from memory rather than intention. He didn't recognize the melody, but something about it made his chest tighten. He hated that. He sat motionless, staring out the window at the pond. The geese were back, waddling along the edge, flapping lazily. His legs, stiff and cold, felt like they belonged to another man. He hadn't attempted to move them in months, not since the last therapist gave up. They were appendages of failure, now reminders that some falls you don't get up from. Maya entered quietly, placing the tray on the side table. Tea, 2 sugars, no lemon, she said gently. Jack nodded without looking. She turned to go, but paused at the doorway. Would you like to eat here, or in the dining room? Here's fine, he said, his voice low, absent. She nodded and stepped out. Jack watched the steam curl from the tea, rising like smoke from a fire long extinguished. He reached for the cup, his fingers shaky. It wasn't the tea he wanted. It was control. But his hand knocked the cup slightly, sending it wobbling, a bit of tea spilling onto the saucer. He cursed under his breath. Maya returned almost instantly, having heard the clatter. Let me help, she said. No, he snapped. I can do it. Maya didn't move. She just stood nearby, still and patient. Jack steadied the cup, forced it to his lips, and drank. The heat burned his tongue, but he didn't wince. It was a small pain, manageable, honest. Maya didn't say anything. She just waited. Finally, Jack set the cup down and looked at her. What is it about you? He asked. Maya raised an eyebrow. Sir? You walk around here like you own the place, but not in a cocky way, like you're grounded, like nothing can touch you. I've been touched by more than enough, she said simply. Jack was silent for a long moment. You know, I've had dozens of nurses, assistants, aides. All of them treated me like porcelain or poison. But you're not afraid of me. I'm not here to be afraid, she replied. I'm here to see the man behind the noise. He looked away. There's not much left behind the noise. I don't believe that, Jack scoffed. You think you can fix what the best doctors couldn't? I think healing doesn't always start with doctors. He turned back sharply. So you do think you can heal me? I think I can help you try, she said. Jack's eyes narrowed. That sounds dangerously like hope. Maya smiled faintly. Hope isn't dangerous. It's forgotten, that's all. He leaned back, observing her. And what gives you the right to come in here with all this hope? She didn't flinch. Because I've lived without it, and I know what that silence feels like. Jack didn't answer. He looked down at his legs. You ever lose something that made you who you are? Maya nodded. Yes. Like what? She hesitated, then said, My son, Caleb. He was 9. Leukemia. We couldn't afford the experimental treatment. We had insurance, but it didn't cover that. We waited too long. Jack's mouth opened slightly, but no words came. I quit nursing after that, she continued. Didn't want to see another bed, another chart, another helpless mother. Silence hung between them. I'm sorry, Jack said, and for once, it sounded real. I didn't tell you for sympathy, Maya replied. Just so you'd know when I say I understand pain, I mean it. Jack stared at her for a long moment. Then he nodded, just slightly. If you also feel the pain Maya has endured, and the courage she continues to give her a like. And let us know where you're watching from. Someone nearby might be watching this with you right now. All right, he said. Let's say I believe in your healing magic. What would you do? Lay hands? Pray? Burn sage? Maya shook her head gently. None of that. At least, not yet. Then what? Talk. Walk. If you can't do it with your legs, we'll do it with your mind. Jack looked skeptical. So, it's therapy. It's presence, she corrected. Therapy's too clinical. This is about listening, about facing what's underneath. He grunted. I've faced everything. Not like this, she said. Jack sighed, wheeling his chair back slightly. Fine, but no kumbaya nonsense. And if I feel like it's a waste of time, I end it. Of course, Maya said. That afternoon, they began. She asked him to describe the fall, not the incident, but the moments after the panic, the stillness, the realization. Jack spoke with reluctance, then fluency. He told her about the sound of the horse's scream, the crunch of bone, the way his body went numb before the pain arrived like fire. He spoke about the ambulance, the hospital ceiling tiles, the sterile words from doctors who no longer saw him as powerful. He didn't cry, but when he finished, his voice had cracked. Maya didn't interrupt once. That night, Jack wheeled himself to the library, a room he hadn't entered in over a year. The books were dusty, the fireplace untouched. He scanned the titles, not really reading. He paused at one spine. The Art of Surrender. He pulled it out. Inside was a photo faded and worn of him and his ex-wife at a gala, smiling. They looked invincible. He tossed it back onto the shelf. The next morning, Maya arrived early again. She brought him a different breakfast: grits, fried eggs, and toast with peach jam. Thought you might appreciate a southern morning, she said. He frowned, but tried it. It tasted warm, not gourmet, not extravagant, but like something someone cared enough to cook. They spoke less that day, but they sat longer. Later, Jack asked, "Why do you do this?" Maya tilted her head. "This, work, these people, me." She looked at him, expression soft. "Because someone has to remind the world that pain doesn't make you less human." He nodded slowly. "And you think I'm still human?" She smiled gently. "I think you're still becoming." For the first time in years, Jack felt something stir in his chest. Not anger, not pride, not even hope, but breath. A long, slow human breath. And he didn't want to waste it. 3 days had passed since Maya Williams first stepped through the gates of Remington Estate. 3 days of quiet mornings, tentative conversations, and a silence that seemed less like a void and more like a bridge waiting to be crossed. Jack Remington, once hailed as a titan of industry, now spent his mornings waiting for the sound of Maya's soft footsteps on the marble floors. He told himself it was for the routine, the structure she brought, the precision of her care, but deep down, he knew it was something else, something he wasn't yet ready to name. That morning, Maya entered the sunroom holding a small wooden box. Jack raised an eyebrow. "What's in the mystery chest?" "Memories," she said simply. She set the box down on the coffee table between them and opened it. Inside were small objects, a brass bell, a smooth river stone, a photo of a boy maybe 8 or 9 years old grinning with missing teeth. "That's Caleb," she said softly, pointing to the photo. Jack leaned forward slightly, his eyes lingering on the boy's smile. "He looks like you." "He had his father's laughter," she replied. "But he got my eyes." Jack didn't speak. Instead, he picked up the stone. It was cool and smooth, clearly held often. "I used to give this to Caleb when he got anxious," Maya explained. Said it grounded him. He'd rub it between his fingers and say, "The earth is still under me, Mama, so I'm not floating away." Jack let out a breath. Smart kid. He was. They sat in silence for a moment. "You brought this for me?" Jack asked. Maya nodded. "I think it's time we start." "Start what?" "The healing." Jack scoffed gently. "With rocks?" "With what's real," she corrected. "And what's real is that you carry pain like a badge, but you don't let yourself feel it. Not all the way." "I've felt pain," Jack said, voice tight. "Every damn day since that horse bucked me like a rag doll." "I believe you, but I'm talking about the pain before that. The kind you've buried so deep you don't even name it anymore." Jack leaned back in his chair, jaw tight. "What do you know about my pain?" "Nothing," she said gently. "That's why I'm asking." He looked away, fingers clenched on the armrests. Maya didn't press. She stood, walked to the window, and looked out at the pond. "There's something about still water," she said. "It reflects everything, even what we try to hide." Jack said nothing. Later that afternoon, they moved to the back patio. The sun was warm, and the breeze carried the scent of gardenias. Maya brought out a blanket and laid it on the grass. "We're not meditating, are we?" Jack muttered. "No," she said. "We're stretching." He stared at her. "You realize I can't move my legs, right?" "I know, but there's still value in letting your body remember it exists." Maya guided him gently. She supported his ankles, lifted one leg slowly, carefully, and massaged the joints. He winced at first, more from habit than pain. "You okay?" she asked. "I'm fine," he said quickly. "Just not used to being touched." "Touch isn't just about contact," Maya said. "It's about connection." Jack looked away. For 20 minutes, she worked in silence. Her hands moved with the precision of a trained nurse and the tenderness of a mother. She spoke only when necessary, adjusting, guiding, encouraging. Then, something happened. As she lifted his right leg, her palm resting just above the knee, Jack inhaled sharply. "What was that?" he asked, eyes wide. "I didn't feel anything," Maya said, watching him closely. "I did," Jack whispered. "A tingle. Not strong, just like a flicker. Right here." He pointed to the side of his calf. Maya didn't react with surprise or excitement. She just nodded slowly. "That's good." "You think it's real?" Jack asked. "Only you can answer that," she replied. Jack sat still for a long moment. "No one's touched that leg in 6 months. Not even me. It's been dead." "Maybe it was never dead," Maya said softly. "Just waiting." The next morning, Jack was already awake when Maya arrived. He was dressed, seated at the breakfast nook, sipping coffee. "Well, that's new," she said with a smile. "I figured I'd beat you to it for once," he said, shrugging. She noticed the tray. He had made himself eggs scrambled, slightly runny, and buttered toast. The effort showed. "You cook too?" she teased. "I used to," he said. Before everything became catered and cold, they sat together. The conversation was lighter. Jack even smiled genuinely when Maya mentioned the goose that had chased her car as she drove in. After breakfast, they resumed their stretches. This time, Jack requested music. "Anything but jazz," he grumbled. Maya chose a soulful instrumental track, something smooth and steady. As she worked his legs, he told her about the early days of his company. The risk, the fire, the nights sleeping under his desk. She listened with interest, not just to the content, but to the way he spoke, like someone remembering who they once were. At one point, she paused. "Your voice changes when you talk about building things," she said. "How so?" "It softens, like you're talking to someone you love." Jack looked at her. "I did love it, the work, the vision." "What happened?" Jack was quiet. Then, success changed the stakes. Suddenly it was about the stock price, the board, the public image. "I stopped building. I started managing. And I hated managing." Maya nodded. "You lost yourself in the noise." He met her eyes. "Maybe. Or maybe I just never had a clear picture of who I was to begin with." That night, Jack wheeled himself into the music room, a place he hadn't entered since the accident. Dust clung to the piano lid. He opened it, ran his fingers over the keys. Then he pressed one. It rang, clear and sharp. He played a second. Then a third. It wasn't a song. Not yet, but it was a sound, a beginning. Maya, in the hallway, heard it. She paused, one hand on the stair rail, and smiled. The next day, Jack asked her to teach him meditation. "I thought you hated kumbaya," she teased. "I changed my mind," he said. They sat together, breathing. Maya guided him through the process, awareness, breath, presence. When they finished, Jack didn't open his eyes right away. "I felt lighter," he said. "Because you let go," she replied. He nodded slowly. "I want to keep going." "We will." That afternoon, as Maya packed up to leave, Jack called out, "Maya." She turned. "That thing you said about not floating away?" He held up the stone from her memory box. "Can I borrow this for a while?" She smiled. "It's yours now." Jack nodded, gripping it gently in his hand. For the first time in a long time, he didn't feel like a broken man. Have felt like a mon beginning again. The days grew longer, warmer, brighter. Something shifted in the Remington estate, not just in the air or the rooms, but in the man who once ruled them like a ghost in his own kingdom. Jack Remington had begun to inhabit his space again, not just exist within it. The music room no longer stayed silent. The breakfast nook was now a place for two. The sunroom, once his private prison, became a shared sanctuary. And yet, the silence hadn't vanished entirely. It lingered in unspoken memories, in the questions Jack still avoided, and in the way he sometimes stared at nothing for long stretches of time, his fingers absently tracing the smooth riverstone Maya had given him. On the 7th morning since Maya began her work, Jack woke before dawn. He sat by the window, watching the gray light seep into the garden like water soaking into dry earth. His legs, still unmoving, were warmer now, more present. He could feel pressure when he pressed his palms against them. He couldn't explain it, but it was real. He didn't call Maya that morning. Instead, he tried moving his foot, just a twitch. Nothing dramatic, nothing cinematic. But as he stared at his toes, willing them to shift, he saw it. A flicker, a single movement, small, almost imperceptible, but real. His breath caught in his throat. His heart hammered. He rubbed his eyes, looked again. Yes, it had moved. He sat back, stunned. For several minutes, he couldn't speak, couldn't think, couldn't even smile. The moment was too big for expression. He had written off his body for dead, and now it whispered. By the time Maya arrived, Jack was already in the hallway, hands on his wheels, back straight. "You look different," she said, tilting her head. "I moved it," he said. "Your leg?" "My toe." She said nothing, just smiled and nodded. "I almost didn't believe it," Jack added. "I thought maybe it was a twitch, a nerve spasm, but it was me. I made it move." Maya placed her bag down gently. Then we moved forward. That morning, they didn't stretch. Instead, Maya asked him to sit in the music room. She placed a shallow bowl of warm water near his feet. "What's this?" he asked. "A reminder that healing isn't always dramatic," she said. "It's small, quiet. Sometimes, it feels like washing away shame." Jack hesitated. "You want me to put my feet in?" She nodded. "And I'll wash them." He stared at her, stunned. "That's not necessary." "It's not about necessity," she said. "It's about permission." He didn't know why, but his throat tightened. He looked away, ashamed. "I can't let you do that." "Because of pride?" He didn't answer. "Or because you think your scars make you less?" Still, silence. "Jack, I'm not here to fix you like a broken chair," she continued. "I'm here to remind you you're worth the effort." After a moment, he slowly lifted one leg, let her guide his foot into the bowl. The water was warm, the sensation strange. When she began washing, gently, with a soft cloth, something inside him cracked. Not his ego, his grief. He didn't speak. Just let her work in silence. His eyes burned, but he didn't wipe them. Afterward, Maya dried his feet and placed thick socks on them. "One day," she said, "you'll walk to this room without help. I want to believe you," he whispered. "Then start by believing yourself." Later that day, Jack made a phone call. One he hadn't made in years. The line rang 4 times before a voice answered, wary and low. "Hello?" "Cliff," Jack said. "It's me." A pause. Then, "Jack?" "Yeah." Another silence. Then Cliff exhaled slowly. "You're alive." "Last I checked." They laughed awkwardly, uneasily. "Why are you calling?" Cliff asked. Jack swallowed. "I don't know. I guess I thought, maybe I could say I'm sorry." Cliff went quiet again. "For what?" he said finally. "For how it ended. For the boardroom vote. For pushing you out when you didn't deserve it." Cliff let out a bitter chuckle. "Took you 4 years in a wheelchair to grow a conscience?" "I deserve that," Jack said. There was a long silence. Then Cliff's voice softened. "You really mean it?" "I do." Another beat. "Well, I'll be damned." They spoke for 10 more minutes. When the call ended, Jack sat in stunned silence. He hadn't realized how heavy regret was until he set it down. The next few days passed with a new rhythm. Maya introduced light resistance bands. Jack pushed against them, his arms trembling, his legs barely registering tension, but they moved. One afternoon, Maya walked in with a small bag. What's that? Jack asked. An old shirt of yours. He raised an eyebrow. You went through my closet? I asked the housekeeper. She said you used to wear this when you built your first lab. She pulled out a faded navy t-shirt with a cracked tech logo on the front. Jack stared. I haven't seen that thing in 10 years. Put it on. He hesitated. It probably smells like old dreams. Exactly. He changed slowly, with effort, and looked at himself in the mirror. For the first time in months, maybe years, he saw a man, not a patient. That evening, they sat in the garden. Maya sipped tea. Jack read from a book she'd recommended, The Long Walk Back, a memoir of a war veteran who rebuilt his life from paralysis. You're not the only one, she reminded him. Pain makes us feel alone, but we're not. Jack nodded. Thank you. For what? For seeing past the headlines. For not treating me like the sum of my mistakes. You're welcome, she said softly. As the sun dipped below the trees, Jack asked, Do you think Caleb would have liked me? Maya looked at him, surprised. I think, she said carefully, he would have seen the part of you that's coming back to life. Jack exhaled, the answer settling deep inside him. That night, he stood, not fully, not long. But with Maya's help, he rose from the chair. His legs trembled, his arms shook, and sweat beaded on his forehead. But he stood, and the silence around him broke not with noise, but with presence. He wasn't a miracle, but he was moving, becoming, alive. The following morning, Jack Remington awoke before the birds had begun their chorus. For a man who once lived by alarms, meetings, and sharp deadlines, this new rhythm was jarringly quiet. But today, something pulsed under his skin, a heat, an urgency, not panic, but anticipation. He sat up slowly in bed, swung his legs over the edge, and reached for the cane Maya had brought 3 days ago. He hadn't used it yet, not seriously. It stood in the corner like a challenge, a symbol. But today, he grasped it, fingers trembling around the carved wood handle, and pressed it into the floor. For a moment, nothing moved. Then, slowly, with a groan and clenched teeth, he shifted forward. His legs weak, stubborn, hesitant responded. He pushed upward, 1 inch at a time, until he stood. His breath came fast, heart pounding as though he'd run a mile, but he was up. He didn't call for Maya, didn't reach for the intercom. He took 1 step, then another. Each step was fire. Each step was freedom. By the time Maya entered the house at 7:30 sharp, Jack was already halfway down the hall, leaning heavily on the cane but upright, dressed, and sweating profusely. She froze at the sight. You're walking, she whispered, her voice a mix of awe and caution. Kind of, Jack grunted, more like falling forward and catching myself. She approached slowly, hands ready in case he slipped. Jack, this is incredible, she said, her eyes shining. He chuckled breathlessly. I didn't want to wait. I needed to know it wasn't a dream. Maya stepped beside him, placed a hand gently on his arm for balance. I'll be your shadow today, she said, just until you're steady. I won't argue, Jack said, voice still raw. That morning, they walked from room to room, slowly, painfully, but triumphantly. Each doorway passed was a victory. Each new step was a battle against fear and doubt. Jack cursed under his breath often, but never stopped. They took breaks. They hydrated. Maya made protein smoothies, light on sugar, heavy on banana and almond butter. Jack wrinkled his nose but drank every drop. At one point, Jack asked, What happens if I fall? You let me catch you, she said, and we try again. Around midday, Jack sat by the fireplace, a towel around his neck, face flushed from effort. He stared at the dancing flames for a long time. You ever think about revenge? He asked suddenly. Maya looked up from where she was tidying the floor mats. I used to, she said. When I was younger, when the world felt like it owed me something. He nodded slowly. I still think about it. Not petty revenge, but big revenge. Take down an entire boardroom kind of revenge. She came over, sat across from him. Revenge is about power, she said. It fills a space when dignity's been taken away. Jack's jaw tightened. They made me feel worthless. Then reclaim your worth by rising, she said, not by dragging others down. He looked at her. You always talk like that? Like some walking proverb? She smiled. Only when it matters. Jack turned back to the fire. When I was in that hospital, they sent a rep from the board. Not the CEO, not even my assistant, just a rep, cold eyes, smelled like air freshener and fear. She said, "Jack, the board needs to move forward. You've given all you can. Time to rest. Rest." Like I was a dying dog. Maya stayed silent. I signed the papers. What choice did I have? I couldn't walk, couldn't speak properly. They told me the next surgery might make things worse, said I should focus on healing, so I gave it all up. Maya leaned in. "But you're not done." "No," he said softly. "I'm just beginning." That afternoon, Maya guided him through seated resistance training. Bands, light weights, balance drills. She didn't push beyond his limit, but she nudged his spirit every step of the way. At one point, while lifting a small dumbbell, Jack looked at her. "You think this is really happening?" "I think your body is catching up with your soul," she said. He chuckled. "You ever run out of metaphors?" "Never," she smiled. Later that evening, Jack requested to eat on the back porch. The sun dipped low, casting long shadows over the estate gardens. The cicadas hummed their steady summer song. Maya prepared grilled chicken with rosemary, wild rice, and grilled vegetables. She brought out iced tea with mint and sat across from him. Jack chewed slowly, thoughtfully. "This is good," he admitted. "My grandmother's recipe," she said. "She used to cook for everyone on Sundays. Big porch, long table, chairs that didn't match, laughter from 3 houses down." Jack smiled faintly. "Sounds like a memory that keeps you company." "It is," she said. They ate in silence for a moment. Then Jack asked, "You ever think about going back to nursing full-time?" She hesitated. "Sometimes. But the system is broken. Too many charts, not enough care. I do better one-on-one. Human to human." Jack nodded slowly. "That's how I built my first team. No titles, just trust." As the evening deepened, the conversation turned quiet. The air grew cooler. Jack leaned back in his chair, legs aching, heart full. "Tomorrow," he said softly, "I want to walk outside." Maya looked at him. "Are you sure?" "I'm done hiding in this mausoleum." "Then I'll be ready." That night, Jack returned to the music room. This time, he sat at the piano, stretched his fingers, and played. It wasn't Bach or Beethoven, just chords, soft, hesitant, but real. The music floated through the hallways, past portraits of ancestors, past rooms that hadn't seen light in years. Maya, upstairs folding blankets, stopped. She closed her eyes and listened, and she smiled, because the fire beneath the surface had turned into song, and Jack Remington was no longer broken. He was burning, becoming, rising. The morning sun broke through the trees like liquid gold, spilling across the gravel paths of the Remington estate. Birds darted from branch to branch, chirping cheerfully, as if the world itself was preparing to witness something sacred. In the stillness of dawn, Maya Williams stood at the threshold of the back veranda, waiting for Jack Remington. He emerged slowly, cane in hand, steps cautious but determined. His button-down shirt was crisp, his khakis neatly pressed. There was sweat at his temples already, though he hadn't walked more than a dozen feet. Maya smiled. "You ready?" Jack looked out at the path that curved gently into the woods, past the gardens, through the orchard, and down to the reflecting pond. He hadn't been there in years. "As I'll ever be," he said. They began. Jack's feet crunched against the gravel, his cane thudding in a steady rhythm. Maya walked beside him, not touching, just present his silent anchor. Every step was a rebellion against doubt. Every breath a challenge to the voices that had once declared him finished. The pain was still there, like a shadow under the sun, but it no longer ruled him. They passed the garden first. The roses had come back in bloom, deep reds, blushing pinks, pure whites. Jack paused, breathing deeply. "My wife planted those," he murmured. Said roses made her feel powerful. She liked how they could be beautiful and dangerous. Maya nodded. "Ah, perfect metaphor." "She left long before the accident," Jack continued. "But I let her go long before that." They moved on. At the orchard, Jack leaned against a gnarled apple tree. "I used to bring interns out here, told them success grows in rows, hard work, sunlight, patience. You still believe that?" "I believe growth hurts, but yes, it's still true." As they neared the pond, Maya slowed. "You want to rest?" Jack shook his head. I didn't come this far to stop now. At the edge of the water, he looked at his reflection, older, scarred, but standing. A dragonfly hovered over the surface. The air was still. Jack sat on a stone bench, breathing heavily, but with a look in his eyes Maya hadn't seen before, peace, edged with pride. "You've changed," she said. "I've remembered," he replied, "what it's like to fight for something." They sat in silence, the pond before them calm and silver. Then Jack spoke, softer this time. "I want to go back." "To what?" "To the company. Not as CEO. I don't need a title, but I want to build again. Maybe something different. Maybe a foundation." Maya smiled. "What would it focus on?" "Second chances, healing, dignity." She looked at him with quiet admiration. "You're not who I met in that restaurant," Jack chuckled. "I'm not sure I was ever really that man. Just a mirror of what power made me." He stood slowly, gripping the cane, and turned back toward the house. The return walk was slower, but not from exhaustion. He was thinking. By the time they reached the veranda, the estate staff had gathered. The housekeeper, the groundskeeper, 2 cooks. They didn't speak, they just clapped quietly as Jack passed. Not a show, not forced. Maya wiped a tear before it could fall. Later that day, Jack made 2 phone calls. The first was to his former partner, Cliff. "I'm building something new," he said, "and I want you in." Cliff was quiet for a moment, then said, "Tell me when and where." The second call was to a small medical research lab in Atlanta. "I want to fund a grant," Jack told the director, "for spinal injury recovery, accessible to veterans and low-income patients. Name it after Maya's son." The director paused, then replied, "It would be our honor." When he told Maya later that evening, she didn't speak, just placed a hand over her heart and nodded, her eyes wet. "You didn't have to," she began. "I did," he interrupted, "because healing is never just about one person. You gave me back my life. Now I give it forward." That night, as the estate lights glowed like lanterns in the dusk, Jack played piano again. This time, he played a melody imperfect, hesitant but real. Maya sat beside him, humming the tune he had never known the name of until now. He stopped suddenly. "What is that song?" he asked. "It's called Hush, Little Warrior," she said. "My mother sang it to me. I sang it to Caleb." Jack closed his eyes, played it once more, and for the first time in years, he felt like a man not just standing but moving forward, with purpose, with grace, alive, awake, and ready to walk into the world again. A week passed since Jack Remington's walk to the pond, a pilgrimage that marked not just physical recovery, but a soul reclaimed. The estate had taken on a rhythm again, the soft clink of silverware at breakfast, the low hum of music from the piano room, and the occasional laughter between Jack and Maya as they debated everything from jazz to justice. But healing was never linear. It crept forward, paused, took 2 steps back, and then leapt when least expected. And on a warm Friday morning, as the estate stirred awake under a pink southern sky, an uninvited piece of Jack's past returned with the ring of a doorbell. Maya answered the door. On the stone step stood a woman dressed in tailored navy and high heels far too expensive for comfort. Her hair was silver blonde, her smile sharp. She didn't wait for an invitation. "I'm here to see Jack Remington," she said, stepping forward with the air of someone used to doors opening for her. Maya blocked her politely. "And you are?" The woman paused. "Tell him it's Veronica." Maya's heart tightened. She knew the name Veronica Pierce, Jack's ex-wife, the one who'd left when his world collapsed. A moment later, Jack appeared in the hallway, leaning on his cane, dressed in a dark sweater and slacks. He stopped mid-step. "Veronica," he said flatly. "Jack," she replied. "You look different. Most people do when they stand again." She tilted her head, eyes narrowing just slightly. "May I come in?" Jack nodded, gesturing her toward the sitting room. Maya watched her glide past, perfume trailing like intention. Inside, the silence was thick. Veronica perched on the edge of a velvet armchair while Jack eased himself into his usual spot, eyes guarded. "I didn't come for drama," she began. "Then why are you here?" "I read about the grant, the foundation, your return from the dead tour." Jack's eyes darkened. "It's not a tour, it's a second life. And you're giving it away. Millions, Jack. To people you don't even know. To people who need it, he said evenly. To those like Maya. Veronica glanced toward the door. That your nurse? She's the reason I'm standing. There was a pause. Jack, I'm not here to fight, she said, her tone softening. I came to say, I'm glad you're better. He didn't smile. And I wonder if there's a place for me. In whatever this new chapter is. Jack leaned forward slightly. You left when I needed you most. I was scared, she snapped. They told me you'd never recover, that you might lose your mind along with your body. I panicked. I grieved the man I thought I lost. You didn't lose me, Jack said. You let me go. Veronica's eyes glossed over, but she blinked the tears back. You're right. I failed. But I never stopped caring. Jack looked at her, really looked. The lines around her eyes, the hunger in her gaze, not for money, but for belonging. I believe you, he said quietly, but that doesn't mean we can go back. She nodded slowly. Then maybe we can go forward. As something else. Outside the room, Maya moved silently down the hallway, giving them privacy. She didn't feel jealousy, not exactly, but something tightened in her chest. Later that day, Jack found Maya in the garden. She was trimming roses, her gloved hands gentle, precise. Do you want to ask? He said. She looked up. Not unless you want to tell. She came to see if there was room in this new life. And is there? Jack sighed. I don't know. Maybe. But I also know what I've built with you is real. And I won't let anything break that. Maya nodded, her eyes on the roses. Healing has many forms, Jack. Some come with a second chance, others with a letting go. Jack took the shears from her hand gently. What about you? What does healing look like for you now? Maya took a deep breath. It looks like purpose, like watching someone rise after they were sure they couldn't, like Caleb's name meaning something in the world. Jack's eyes softened. I want you on the board, of the foundation, as a partner. Maya blinked. Jack, I'm serious. You're not just part of my story, you've rewritten it. She was quiet for a long time, then nodded. Then we build it right. That evening, Jack returned to the sitting room where Veronica waited with a glass of wine untouched. I can't offer what you want, he said gently. I figured, she replied. But I'm not angry anymore. Veronica exhaled. Thank you. I hope you find your own second life, he said, walking her to the door. Outside, the dusk had fallen. Fireflies danced across the lawn. Veronica turned once, looked back, and smiled. You really did change. Jack smiled. I remembered who I was. As the door closed behind her, Maya stood at the bottom of the stairs, watching. Jack walked toward her, steady now, confident. We've got a foundation to launch, he said. And a story to tell, she replied. Together, they stepped into the evening. He no longer just a man once broken. She no longer just a caretaker. They were partners now, in purpose and in healing, walking side by side into the next chapter. The next morning dawned crisp and clear, as if the world itself had paused overnight to consider what power really looked like. The estate felt alive. Light streamed through tall windows, casting golden patterns across rooms that were once cloaked in dust and silence. Jack Remington and Maya Williams moved through their routines side by side. He no longer a patient. She no longer just a caregiver. Over breakfast, the phone rang. Jack answered, and his expression shifted from curiosity to shock in an instant. He looked at Maya, his voice revealing a caution she hadn't heard before. That was the board president of the company. They're demanding a meeting today. Maya sat up, curiosity sparked. The original board? The one that pushed you out? Jack nodded slowly. Yes. They claim the foundation is interfering with their projections. They want to negotiate. Maya understood. This was more than politics. It was about power, reputation, control. Jack had thought his past life dead, but the world wasn't ready to let him go. He forced a tight smile. I'll handle it. At midday, Jack arrived at the sleek glass tower downtown, cane steady in hand. Maya followed, observing from the visitor's bench. After all he'd been through, this was the first time he returned to the corporate battlefield, not as tyrant, but as wounded man who refused to stay down. The boardroom was austere, A long mahogany table, cold chairs, and executives in sharp suits. The president, Catherine Holt, rose to greet him with imperious formality. "Mr. Remington," he nodded. "Ladies and gentlemen," Catherine sat abruptly, "we've reviewed your foundation's early financials. Your withdrawal from daily operations, combined with substantial allocations to projects outside our control, it's alarming. So you're concerned I might be honest," Jack said quietly. "Concerned I'm placing integrity over profit." A murmur. Catherine steepled her fingers. "Integrity doesn't pay dividends." Jack leaned forward. Cane tapped softly. "It pays dividends in lives." Catherine's eyes flicked to the charts projected on the screen, numbers of veterans granted therapy, community centers funded, low-income children receiving scholarships. "Your foundation, as admirable as these numbers are, is siphoning budget from R&D. Our investors threaten to pull out." "Then they don't believe in tomorrow," Jack replied. "They believe in quarterly return." The room fell silent. Catherine's lips pressed thin. "What are you asking?" "Respect for both visions. I'm resigning as chairman of the board. Maya Williams will take my seat. I expect fair transition terms and full autonomy for the foundation's projects." Gasps. Catherine's hand trembled as she held her glass. A senior investor cleared his throat. "That's unprecedented. Unthinkable," another whispered. Jack spoke calmly. "What I'm asking is accountability. You wanted innovation. I'm asking for evolution." Silence again, then one investor stood. "We'll need time." Jack nodded. "You have 1 week. After that, control reverts entirely to the foundation." With that, he stood, cane tapping, his spine straight. Directors exchanged looks, some grudging respect, some irritation. None would stop him. Back in the lobby, Maya met him. She touched his arm gently. "You were fearless." He exhaled slowly. "I was honest." She smiled, relief washing over her. Two realities had collided, the board of magnates, and a foundation built on compassion. They'd met, and he'd stood. That evening, back at the estate, Jack and Maya walked in the garden. Fireflies flickered around the pond. He stopped, watching the lights dance. "They push back," he said softly, "because they never had to face their humanity." Maya stood beside him. "But you do." Jack turned to her. "You made me face it." She reached out, touched his hand. "And now we face the world with or without them." Over the next days, Jack prepared for the foundation's launch event. Maya helped select guest speakers, veterans, families, activists. They practiced the speech she would deliver alongside him, her confidence steady, his presence calm. On launch day, the grand hall was filled journalists, community leaders, clients, survivors. The theme, healing from within, from brokenness to purpose. Jack took the stage first. He spoke with conviction. No flourish, no billion-dollar boasting. He spoke of redemption, regret. The moment clay in his own hands felt alive again. He introduced Maya, his partner, equal, heartbeat behind the vision. When she stepped forward, the room fell silent. She spoke of loss, Caleb, the lack of belts for low-income families, stories of mothers forced to choose between medicine and food. She spoke of hope, not false optimism, but steady faith in small actions. The audience listened, rapt. Afterward, supporters lined up to shake hands. A former addict embraced them, tears in his eyes. A veteran thanked him for offering accessible therapy. A single mom mentioned she could send her child to college because of a scholarship. Jack watched, humbled. He squeezed Maya's hand. "Today," he said quietly, "we changed something." She nodded. "Not just others, ourselves." The back of the hall lingered Catherine Holt and a few board members who hadn't attended. A PR representative approached them, uneasy. Catherine bristled but said nothing. The message was clear. Influence was shifting. Later, as night settled, Jack wheeled himself to the music room. Maya followed. He sat at the piano and played again, the notes deeper, steadier, richer. This time, the melody wasn't hesitant, it was full-bodied, resilient. Maya listened, tears hidden by the crook of her hand. When he finished, he closed the lid and looked at her. "This is just the beginning," he said. She smiled. "Then let's begin." And as they stepped into the soft glow of lamps and guitar lights, Jack Remington realized the road ahead wasn't smooth. It wasn't predictable. But for the first time in years, he wasn't walking it alone. Jack woke before sunrise again, but this morning the air felt heavier. The Foundation's launch dust had settled, replaced by the weight of expectations from supporters, critics, investors. He sat at the window, watching low mist pool over the pond. Beneath the fog, doubts coiled. Maya entered quietly, fresh coffee in hand. She sat beside him. "How are you?" she asked softly. "Worried," Jack admitted, rubbing his forehead. "I thought I'd feel freer after today. Instead, I feel exposed." Maya nodded, offering coffee. "That's normal." He took a sip, bitter with adrenaline. "They're watching now. Every step." Cortez called said shareholders are ready to push for early dissolution. Maya's face tightened. "That's a threat." "It's all I built," Jack replied quietly. "A legacy." Maya placed a hand on his. "Legacies evolve. They don't vanish because someone feels threatened." He closed his eyes. The shame and anger flickered a remnant of who he was, who he'd become. But before dawn, he'd learned vulnerability. The day moved with urgency. A board meeting was scheduled for the elderly directors to attempt a takeover again. Jack insisted on bringing Maya along. Inside the boardroom, the air was cold. The suits had rehearsed their lines. Catherine attempted polite charm. "Jack, may we go over the covenant again?" Jack nodded. "After you show me the community feedback." A steward handed him a thick binder. Inside, hundreds of letters, stories, photos, veterans in wheelchairs sharing gratitude, mothers holding diplomas granted to their children, lives in transition. He pushed it toward the board. That's success measured in real terms. Investors exchanged glances. Catherine's face thinned. "That's anecdotal. We deal in numbers." Jack asked, "What's worth more, $1,000 or 1,000 lives healed?" Catherine stood abruptly. "We'll continue this in private." Jack nodded. The board meeting ended without resolution. But as they exited, staff carried fresh-baked muffins and coffee to the same directors. They paused, accepted quiet acknowledgement that service mattered. Outside the building, Maya slipped her arm into Jack's. "You made them uncomfortable." He allowed himself a small smile. "I made them remember." On the drive home, Jack turned on the radio, a news segment about ethical capitalism. His transformation was now news. Social media buzzed. Some called it a miracle, others called it naive. But people were talking. Maya leaned forward. "That's good. Conversation is the first step." That evening, Jack asked Maya to join him in the music room. He lifted the lid of the piano, his fingers resting above the keys. Maya sat beside him. "It's quiet." He took a deep breath, then began playing slowly a melody of contemplation and resolve. Notes floated across walls lined with photographs of happier days. As the song ended, Jack looked up. "I think they won't let it go softly." Maya met his gaze. "Then we don't let it fade quietly." He nodded. "We fight with purpose." In the quiet that followed, they spoke about strategy. Press briefings, community outreach, transparency. A plan to solidify the Foundation's independence and purpose. That night, Jack wrote a letter by hand, addressed to the board, announcing his full resignation from corporate governance, irrevocably granting control to the Maya Williams Community Foundation, and forfeiting all personal entitlements tied to corporate profit. He left it on the dining table. The next morning he delivered it. A week later, the board replied, firm denial. The motion would be voted down. But newspapers had run the letter. The public had seen it. Maya stood by Jack as they watched reports. Veterans thanked them on live feeds. Families sent unsolicited donations. A local paper chronicled Maya's unpaid hours turning into systemic change. Jack turned to her. "You did that." "We did that," she replied. He reached out, holding her hand. "I owe you." "You don't owe me," she said. "You just needed remembering." At midnight, Jack wheeled himself to the sunroom for solitude. He stared at the pond, now churning under the moonlight. The reflection was fractured like the world he'd stepped into would be. But inside him, fire remained. Not fear, not anger, purpose. On a whim, he pressed a button. The piano lid lifted slowly, and he pressed a single key, just one note. It didn't sound perfect, not brilliantly, but it broke the silence. He returned to his bed with a steady breath. Maya placed a glass of water on his nightstand just as he drifted off. Tomorrow, another fight, another step. But tonight he rested, guided by the melody of truth and trust, side by side with the woman who helped him find both. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows of the Foundation's new headquarters, illuminating the unfolded banners that read, "Healing Beyond Medicine." It was the 3rd month since the launch, and Jack Remington stood before his team, Maya by his side, confident and composed. Reports stacked on the table, budgets, grant proposals, community feedback. Everything was moving, growing. But the atmosphere held tension. Jack cleared his throat. "We've been live for 90 days, fully independent now." He paused, eyes surveying the room. The board's fight continues. They could force litigation. The press is divided. Donations are pouring in, but so are expectations. He let silence settle. So today's about transparency. He handed Maya a stack of audited financials. For public release, unflinching. Maya stepped forward. No hidden fees, no corporate influence. Every dollar mapped, every recipient named. She held the papers steady, like truth in hand. The team nodded. They had committed to integrity. Now they had to live it. Later that afternoon, Jack scheduled a sit-down with a respected journalist, Ana Torres, who specialized in investigative reporting. In the plush office of a downtown publication, cameras and recorders waited. She opened the interview with a pointed question. "Mr. Remington, many describe your shift from CEO to philanthropist as sudden. What really changed?" Jack took a breath. "I lost everything that anchored me. My company, my body, my identity. But I was given a second chance by someone who had nothing to gain but still put herself on the line." He looked at Maya through the glass. "That's where change begins." His words landed softly but sharply, carried by conviction. Anna pressed further. "What about your board? They say you're jeopardizing investor confidence." Jack leaned forward. "I say walk toward confidence grounded in compassion. Money without integrity is bankrupt." He paused. "You can measure ROI in dollars, but it doesn't tell you about lives saved, hope restored, dignity remembered." She let the silence linger, then closed her notebook with respect. "Thank you," she whispered. That night, after Maya left the press building, Jack sat alone walking through archives of stories, photos of veterans embracing loved ones, children holding scholarship letters, families rebuilding after overlooked crises. He felt both pride and fear the world had seen his newborn dream. Now they waited to see if it would breathe. Back at Remington Estate, Maya found Jack at the piano. He played a soft chord, an echo of uncertainty, yet laced with resolve. She sat beside him, listening. "Do you regret leaving the board?" Maya asked. Jack paused. "Only the men I cut out, but I don't regret the man I became." He resumed playing, the notes richer now. A week later, the Foundation's annual gala was underway. The grand hall glowed under soft lights. Guests included community leaders, recipients, philanthropists, even members of the press. Jack greeted them with quiet strength. Maya stood as co-host, confident yet approachable. They launched a campaign: therapy scholarships for military vets, mobile clinics for underserved neighborhoods. As Jack spoke, he wove truth and testimony what medicine couldn't fix. He introduced Maya, telling her story, calling her the soul of the project. The audience erupted into applause, genuine, heartfelt. In the back corner, a journalist from a rival paper scribbled notes furiously. A board member from Jack's former company watched silently. The stage had shifted. Influence was passing hands. Afterward, people lined up for photos, handshakes, praise. A veteran in tears called Jack over. He knelt beside him, listened to his story of late treatments, mounting medical debt, the shame of helplessness. Jack nodded, silently offering kinship. Maya handed out cards, invitations to free counseling, volunteer opportunities. One mother approached her, trembling. "Your foundation saved my son." Maya hugged her. Words weren't needed. Later, Jack and Maya stepped outside to the terrace, warm air scented with jasmine. They watched guests drift through the courtyard. Maya let her head rest on Jack's shoulder. You did something real tonight. He kissed her temple. Because you made me remember why. She glanced toward the horizon. They'll continue testing us. He nodded. Let them. Truth wears well under pressure. Inside, the gala's media coverage spilled over. Live streams, tweets, headlines like, From Wall Street to Healing Streets. Maya Williams, Care Beyond Charts. Some critics sneered, others cheered, but everyone spoke. In the days that followed, Jack received letters, gratitude, stories, poems, essays. One from an injured veteran simply said, You taught me to stand. At night, Jack placed the letters on his bedside table. He'd asked for transparency. The world had answered by giving him purpose and accountability. Maya traced the initials on his foundation ring. Promise we stay honest? Jack smiled. Promise. That night, he played the piano again, this time a fuller rendition of Hush, Little Warrior. Maya hummed softly beside him. It sounded like healing. And in the soft glow of lamplight and music, Jack Remington, once a man broken by power and accident, realized he was building something stronger than himself. Stronger than pain. A legacy not of fame, but of faith. Jack woke earlier than usual. A dull ache in his legs reminding him of both past fragility and present potency. Today marked 6 months since Maya Williams had stepped into his life, half a year since his initial spark of change. He crossed his study in silence and paused at the mirror. His reflection looked wary, hopeful, scarred, steadier. Down in the kitchen, Maya was setting out fruit and yogurt on the table. Cinnamon-glazed almonds, fresh grapefruit, warm whole wheat toast. The aroma felt like ritual now. Morning, he said softly. Morning, she replied, her tone bright but calm. Ready? Jack nodded. Let's do this. They walked together to the study, where legal documents awaited. Jack had scheduled a mediated reconciliation meeting with former board members who'd once pushed him out entirely. Catherine Holt, the board president, and several executives would attend. Maya watched as Jack loomed at the head of the polished conference table. He placed his cane leaning discreetly nearby. He would stand this time. Catherine began with polite reserve. Jack, we've seen the public interest, but we remain concerned about fiduciary responsibility. Her words were smooth as glass. Jack leaned forward. Then here's the truth. He handed her a report, open, transparent, full of impact stories. This foundation isn't a charity to say sorry. It's a vision to empower. When Catherine attempted to counter with numbers and charts, Jack countered with testimony. Survivors, scholarship recipients, injured veterans able to walk again or find jobs. He spoke with quiet gravity, each sentence grounded in risk offered and risk borne. Catherine interrupted. You're asking us to forgive and release stakes you've had for 2 decades. Jack's voice was steady. I'm asking you to acknowledge that healing and growth are not cash flows on a balance sheet. Their lives restored. The room fell silent. Then one executive, young, earnest, spoke. I lost my brother in Afghanistan. He never walked again. But your clinic helped his wife. She found purpose helping others. Heads turned. Catherine exhaled through pursed lips. Jack nodded. Redemption isn't in acquittal. It's in making amends. After hours of negotiation, they reached an agreement. Jack would formally resign any corporate role within 30 days. Maya Williams would assume sole control over the foundation's mission, funds, and vision. The corporate entity would contribute an initial endowment, but no longer influence operations. Jack felt a hand on his shoulder. It was Maya. He didn't wobble. He didn't break. He nodded, eyes moist. Later, after everyone departed, Maya helped him wheel through the empty hall. No applause, no headlines, just 2 people abiding by truth. That evening, Jack returned to the piano room alone. The house was quiet, the estate lights dim. Butterflies of memory drifted through the corridors of mistakes, failures, lost time. He seated himself and opened the lid. Jaguar white keys gleamed. He played, not the warrior lullaby, but an improvisation discordant at first, then coherent, then hopeful. He let the melody unfold without expectation. It spoke forgiveness, loss, and courage. In the doorway stood Maya. That was beautiful. He looked up, heart pounding. It's all I have right now. That's enough, she said. He closed the piano and walked beside her into the foyer. Portraits of ancestors looked on. He paused before a dusty silver frame of a younger Jack, president of his company. The smile was proud, but hollow. He inhaled slowly. I spent years chasing a reflection. Maya reached for his hand. Now you're building something real. Jack let that sink in. It carried weight in every breath. Days later, the foundation moved into its new Midtown Atlanta clinic. The grand opening was intimate families, staff, mentors, local church leaders. Jack and Maya launched the first mobile unit, a refurbished van equipped with therapy supplies, staffed by volunteers and funded by local companies. There were tears when a veteran leaned on a walker, took a shaky step, then another. When a child drew a self-portrait, including the wheelchair that no longer needed wheels. When Maya hugged every mother who applied for a grant, not paperwork. After the ceremony, Jack and Maya stood outside as dusk settled. I never thought I'd see this, Jack breathed. Not after I hit bottom. She smiled. Healing isn't linear, Jack. It's messy. Then it becomes living. He turned to her. You taught me that. She reached up and kissed his cheek. You learned it. They stood at the clinic's threshold, lights shining behind them, a beacon in the neighborhood. A volunteer boy stepped forward, shy. Mr. Remington, ma'am, thank you. He smiled. Keep walking. The boy grinned and sprinted off. Jack felt tears in his eyes, pride, humility, similar pride. That night, back at the estate, Jack phoned Cliff, his former partner. Cliff, he said, voice soft. We did what we planned. Cliff sounded surprised. You've actually done it. I couldn't have done it without Maya. Silence on the line. Then Cliff responded, you owe her more than you know. It's not debt, it's grace. Cliff hesitated. If you ever want to rebuild together, I'd listen. Jack considered. He looked at the framed art on the wall. Old prototypes of his inventions. The patents, the wealth. And then at Maya's hands folded. Maybe next time not for wealth. For something that lasts. He hung up. Something shifted. Later, Jack picked up the brass bell Maya had brought in Chapter 3. He held it in his palm. Ding, he said softly, ringing it once. Maya smiled. Still keeps time. He placed it on the shelf of the music room beside the piano. Then he introduced something new, a glass case filled with letters. Gratitude notes. I walk again because of you. I got my diploma. You saw me. They titled it, The Remington Archive, not of achievements, but stories, a monument of humanity. Jack stood beside Maya in that quiet room of light. The walls no longer held accolades or illusions, they held faces, names, lives. He turned to her. We've not just healed bodies, we healed story. Maya nodded. And story heals us all. They stepped into silence, broken only by the faint memory of hope resonating through piano keys, glass jars, and willing hearts. The journey was far from over. But for the first time, they were walking together, not to outrun the past, but to redeem what lies ahead, step by trusting step. The first light of dawn filtered through the curtains, casting a warm glow over the reflecting pond. Jack Remington sat on the veranda, the cane leaning against the railing, gripping the river stone Maya had given him months ago. He stared at its smooth surface, feeling the weight of every decision that had led him here. The humiliation, the jest in the restaurant, the fall from a horse, the betrayal of his board, and the redemption born in the hands of a woman he barely knew when this began. A soft step beside him. Maya, carrying a tray of coffee and fresh strawberry scones. She set it down without a word and sat. Neither spoke. The morning was already full of meaning. Jack took a sip of coffee. 6 months, he said softly. Since you walked into my life. Maya smiled lightly. And 6 months, since you dared to let yourself rise. He placed the stone in her hand. This belongs to you. She looked down, then met his eyes. No, she whispered. This belongs to both of us. It held him, Caleb, and now it holds this. Jack nodded, swallowing something heavier than gratitude. Then let it remind us both to keep standing, even when we can't feel our feet. Inside the music room, sunlight danced over the archived letters in glass jars. Each note a breath, a life changed. A battered veteran texting thanks. A single mother holding scholarship money. A young girl drawing her future unchanged by disability. Jack and Maya stood between the letters and the piano, quiet partners in purpose. Outside, laughter echoed across the courtyard as volunteers prepared for a community meal. Jack ran his fingers over the keys, lingering on one note. "Play it," Maya urged. He struck a chord, then another. A melody emerged, stronger, steadier, woven from trials and trust. Maya joined in humming softly. The song was not theirs alone. It belonged to every life touched, every hope rekindled, every person who dared to bend before they learned to walk again. Later, the staff and volunteers gathered for lunch on long farmhouse tables beneath oak trees. Veteran and caregiver, student and activist all pulled chairs together. Jack spoke quietly to the gathering. "We didn't start this foundation to ask for applause. We started it so people can rise without asking. Dignity isn't earned, it's remembered." A veteran raised a glass. "To rising, together." He echoed the toast. This wasn't power, it was presence. Afterward, Jack excused himself and found Maya among the crowds, passing out bottled water to community members. He slipped up behind her, placing hands gently on her shoulders. "You've built something that outlives me," he said. She turned and looked him in the eye. "And you gave me the space to believe in that." They leaned into the moment, two souls not seeking rescue, but rising in countless gentle actions. That evening, the estate was calm. House lights glowed from within. The pond shimmered under lamplight. Jack wheeled himself to the sunroom and paused, looking out. Behind him, Maya entered with a blanket. She draped it over his lap and sat on the floor beside him. Jack turned slightly and kissed the top of her head. "Thank you," he said. "For what?" "For making me feel like a man again." "That's not healing," she replied. "That's recognizing what was always there." He rested his hand on hers. The river stone sat on the side table, silent witness. Not a relic of loss, but symbol of presence. They sat in silence, not empty, full of breath, light, humbling completion. Jack's reflection wavered in the pond. But within, he felt whole. In the still air, he asked, "Do you think our story ends here?" Maya exhaled. "Not ends, continues, in every life we touch." Jack smiled. He reached for the cane, stood slowly, steady, without her support, but because of everything she'd helped him reclaim. Maya watched him rise again, stronger and more certain. Jack turned. "Let's walk." Together, they stepped into the veranda's light. Not blindly, not defiant, but with quiet resilience, side by side. Because true healing isn't about walking alone. It's about rising, together, every time the world tries to fall us down. And they had learned that lesson in song, in pain, in gratitude, in shared silence. They stood not at an ending but at a beginning, where broken legs could inspire a foundation, where compassion could become legacy, and where dignity could rise again, not in triumph, but in trust. They walked forward, step by trusting step,